Have you ever looked at a job description for a data analyst and just wondered, okay, but what do they really want? Not just the buzzwords, but what hiring managers are actually looking for. Well, today we're going to dig into a really cool study that went and asked them directly. Let's get into it.
So if you're trying to break into data analytics, this question, it's probably on your mind a lot. And you're right to worry. Turns out, researchers have found this pretty significant gap between what's taught in schools and what the industry actually needs on day one. And that gap has a price tag, a really big one. This is what U.S. companies spend every single year just on training to close that data skills gap. It's a huge issue for them, which means it's a huge opportunity for you if you can show up with the right skills right out of the gate. So to figure out what this ideal candidate actually looks like, researchers did something pretty smart. They just skipped the confusing, sometimes inflated job descriptions. Instead, they went straight to the source. They talked to dozens of hiring managers all across the U.S. to build a real-world profile of the perfect entry-level analyst. The whole study was built around this idea of competency. And it's not just some academic term. It's really about the whole package. It's not enough to just have the knowledge, the know-what. You also need the practical skills, the know-how. And, maybe most importantly, you need the right mindset, the disposition, the know-why. And to map out where you need all those different competencies, the study used this framework. Now, I know it looks a little complex. It's actually called the snail shell model. But all it's really doing is laying out the entire journey of a data project, from the very first question all the way to the end. But we can boil that snail shell thing down, right? You can really think of the workflow in a few key steps. It always starts with figuring out the problem. Then you've got to understand the data itself. After that comes the modeling. And finally, deploying your solution so people can actually use it. That's pretty much the whole journey.
All right, so now that we have the lay of the land, let's get to the part you've been waiting for. What specific tools and skills do hiring managers want you to have in your toolkit? I think a few of these are going to surprise you.
You know all that super niche, complex software you're stressed out about learning? Well, forget about it for a second, because the single most in-demand tool is probably something you've been using for years.
Yep, it's Microsoft Excel. A staggering 98% of hiring managers want you to be good at it. It's not old school, it's the bedrock. And look what's right on its heels, huge platforms like Amazon Web Services and Google Analytics. So the message is clear, you have to nail the fundamentals. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the big data visualization showdown. For years, Tableau was kind of the undisputed king, right? But this study shows a major shift. A full 85% of managers want Power BI skills now, which gives it a huge lead over Tableau. A big reason for this might just be that Power BI is often bundled with Office 365, so it's just easier for companies to adopt.
So let's put it all together. If you were making a list of what to learn next, this is your cheat sheet. For basic analysis, it's Excel. For programming, surprisingly, it's HTML, which is probably used a lot for structuring reports. For enterprise-level stuff, Google Analytics is key. For visualization, it's JavaScript, which powers all those interactive dashboards online. And for databases, Oracle is still the big one. These are your heavy hitters.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. When you think about using code, like SQL or Python, in a data project, where does your mind go? You're probably thinking about the modeling phase, right? Building all of the cool predictive algorithms. But is that really where you're using it the most? Well, check this out. This is a huge misconception. The study found that all that heavy lifting with code, it happens way earlier, in the data understanding phase. And it makes sense when you think about it. Before you can do any of the glamorous modeling stuff, you have to explore, clean, and fight with the raw data to get it into shape. That's all code. Okay, I really want you to listen to this next part because it might be the most important thing we talk about. It's a paradox. A real catch-22 that I'm calling the skill transferability trap, and it will change how you write your resume. So on the one hand, hiring managers are reasonable. They get it. They told researchers that, if you know a tool like Tableau, you can obviously learn a similar one like Power BI. They totally believe that skills can be transferred, which sounds great, right? But, and this is a really, really big but, that human logic is about to run into a brick wall. And there's the trap. That same manager who believes your skills are transferable might never even see your resume. Why? Because most companies use automated resume screeners. These robots are just scanning for exact keywords. If the job description says Power BI and your resume only says Tableau, the machine just kicks it out. A human being never even gets a chance to look at it. So, with all this information, what do we actually do about it? How do we turn these insights into a real plan for your job search? Let's get tactical. First things first, it's not all about the tools. Remember that know why we talked about? When it comes to your personality and mindset, hiring managers said the single most important trait is adaptability, and the most desirable one is responsibility. They just want someone who can roll with the punches and takes ownership of their work.
So let's wrap this up with your action plan. 1. Master the fundamentals. Excel, SQL, and Python are the absolute bedrock. 2. When it comes to visualization, the data says you should prioritize Power BI. 3. Remember that these tools are used everywhere on a project, not just one little part. And 4, and this is critical, you have to tailor your resume every single time. Use the exact keywords to get past those robot gatekeepers.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. We know that hiring managers think like humans, but the hiring systems, they act like machines. The real challenge and the secret to your success is figuring out how to write one resume that can speak to both of them at the same time.